Be sure to stay tuned till the end, because the shocking answer may surprise you. Before we begin, remember to hit the like button and subscribe so you won't miss out on our amazing content. Let's dive in. The image of the dragon is ubiquitous in human history. They are featured in myths, religions, and legends from all over the world. These legendary creatures are depicted as having the body of a snake, the wings of a bat, and the head of a ferocious lion or another carnivorous animal such as a wolf or bear. But let's step back and ask a simple: what exactly is a dragon? In general, dragons are typically portrayed as being incredibly powerful and dangerous creatures that breathe fire and can fly. They are often depicted as living in caves or mountains and guarding vast hoards of treasure. Dragons can be malevolent, as seen in the classic story of St. George and the Dragon, where a dragon terrorizes a town until it is slain by the heroic saint. However, dragons can also be benevolent and wise, as seen in the legend of the Chinese dragon. According to Chinese mythology, dragons bring rain and good fortune to those who respect them. While dragons may seem like a purely mythical creature, they have been revered, feared, and worshipped throughout human history. In fact, there is some evidence that dragons may have been based on real animals that roamed the earth millions of years ago. In today's episode, we are going to explore whether dragons really existed. We will examine the evidence from ancient texts, archaeological finds, and even modern sightings to try and get to the bottom of this fascinating mystery. So sit tight and get ready for a wild ride through the world of dragons. You never know what you might learn. Let's start with the legends. Dragons feature prominently in the folklore of many different cultures around the world, including Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Some of the most famous dragons in literature include Smaug, the fearsome beast from J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit, and the terrifying basilisk from Harry Potter. These fictional dragons capture our imaginations and make us wonder whether they could possibly be real. But dragons are not only found in fantasy books and movies. They are also a common motif in ancient myths and religions. For example, the biblical story of Job mentions a dragon-like creature called Leviathan, which is described as a sea monster with multiple heads. Similarly, in Chinese mythology, dragons are benevolent creatures that bring rain and good fortune. The reverence for dragons in China dates back thousands of years, and they continue to be a symbol of power and good luck in Chinese culture today. So, why are dragons so prevalent in human mythology? One theory is that dragons may have been based on real animals that humans encountered in prehistoric times. Fossils of dinosaurs and other ancient reptiles have been found all over the world, and it is possible that these discoveries inspired stories of dragons. Alternatively, dragons may simply be a product of the human imagination, representing our fascination with powerful and mysterious creatures. Whatever their origins, dragons continue to capture our imaginations and appear in everything from children's cartoons to horror movies. Now let's take a closer look at the evidence for dragons in ancient texts. As mentioned earlier, dragons are featured in many ancient texts, including the Bible, Babylonian texts, and Greek mythology. Let's examine some of these texts in more detail. The first text we will consider is the Bible. As noted earlier, the book of Job contains a passage that describes a terrifying sea monster named Leviathan. The passage states, "Can you draw Job 41:1? A serpent with a flash of lightning. Can you snare him who is swift and darting? His snorting is like that of a stallion. He paws like a young bull. Can you bear his contempt? His arrogance? His terrible horns are like the horns of a wild ox. With them he stirs up terror and he bellows. By the greatness of his strength he makes a terror all around, and the nations are terrified at his roaring. Then he lets out smoke from his nostrils, and his teeth are like swords. A large blazing furnace is on its side. His breath sets sparks flying. Out of his mouth comes burning torches, flakes of sulfur. His breath kindles the coals, and a fire comes out of his throat." This passage paints a vivid picture of a fearsome sea monster that is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Many scholars believe that the Leviathan described in the book of Job was meant to represent a crocodile or a similar aquatic creature. However, others argue that the Leviathan was a symbolic representation of evil that Job must overcome in order to regain his faith. Moving on to Babylonian texts, one of the most famous dragons in mythology is Tiamat. Tiamat was the mother of all dragons and was considered to be the embodiment of chaos. According to Babylonian mythology, Tiamat was killed by the gods Marduk, and her body was used to create the heavens and the earth. The story of Marduk and Tiamat is recorded in the Babylonian epic of creation, also known as the Enuma Elish. The epic tells the story of how the world came into being and how the gods battled the forces of chaos. In the epic, Tiamat is described as a monstrous dragon with multiple heads, each of which breathes fire. She is a formidable opponent for the gods, but ultimately she is slain and her body is used to create the heavens and the earth. Finally, let's turn to Greek mythology. The Greeks had their own dragon lore, including the tale of the Python. The Python was a huge serpent that lived at the base of Mount Parnassus, and it was said to be immortal. The Python was killed by the god Apollo when he was just a young boy. This victory was an important part of Apollo's development as a god. The Python was a symbol of the old ways, and Apollo, his defeat of the creature, represented the triumph of order over chaos. The story of Apollo and the Python is recorded in several ancient Greek texts, including Hesiod's Theogony and Ovid's Metamorphoses. So, what do these ancient texts tell us about dragons? Well, they show us that dragons were clearly an important part of many ancient cultures. They were seen as both dangerous and powerful creatures that could be either benevolent or malevolent. The ancient texts also show us that dragons were often associated with chaos and evil. From the Babylonian creation epic to the Greek myth of Apollo and the Python, dragons were frequently seen as creatures that needed to be defeated in order to bring order to the world. In addition to these mythological accounts, there is also archaeological evidence that suggests dragons may have roamed the earth millions of years ago. In recent years, paleontologists have made some incredible discoveries that have shed new light on the history of dragons. For example, in 2014, a team of researchers in China discovered the fossilized remains of a new species of saurian that they named the Chinese dragon. This discovery was particularly exciting because the Chinese dragon closely resembled the mythical creature from Chinese folklore. The discovery of the Chinese dragon fossil provides a potential link between ancient mythology and reality. It suggests that the Chinese dragon may have been based on an actual animal that existed thousands of years ago. Of course, the discovery of a single fossil is not enough to prove that dragons existed. More evidence is needed to establish whether these creatures were real. Nevertheless, it is an exciting development that has reignited interest in the possibility of dragons as real animals. Other discoveries have also provided clues about the existence of dragons. For example, in Mongolia, locals have long believed that the Gobi Desert is home to a mysterious creature known as the Mongolian death worm. This creature is said to be a giant worm-like dragon that can spit venom and kill its prey. While the Mongolian death worm may sound like a creature from fiction, there have been several reports of people being killed by unidentified creatures in the Gobi Desert. Although the Mongolian death worm has never been proven to exist, it is possible that it could be a real animal that has simply not been discovered yet. One of the most intriguing aspects of dragons is the fact that they appear in myths and legends from all over the world. From Europe to Asia to the Americas, cultures have independently created stories of these mythical creatures. This global presence suggests that dragons may have been based on a real animal that existed before the advent of civilization. Unfortunately, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory. It is possible that dragons were simply a product of the human imagination, representing our fascination with powerful and mysterious creatures. However, the global presence of dragons makes it unlikely that they were just a figment of our collective imagination. To add to the mystery, there have been reports of dragons in recent years. While most of these reports can be debunked as hoaxes or misidentifications, there have been a few cases that remain unexplained. For example, in 2004, a group of villagers in Laos reported seeing a strange creature that they believed was a dragon. The creature was said to be about 30 feet long and had the body of a snake and the wings of a bird. While this story may sound far-fetched, it is possible that the villagers were witnessing a real dragon. In conclusion, the evidence for dragons is both intriguing and frustrating. We have ancient texts that describe these creatures in great detail, but we have yet to find any physical evidence that proves their existence. The discovery of the Chinese dragon fossil provides a tantalizing clue, but more evidence is needed to confirm whether dragons were real animals. Ultimately, the question of whether dragons existed may never be fully answered. However, the search for dragons continues to captivate our imaginations and inspire us to explore the unknown. Whether dragons are real or just a product of our imagination, they will continue to fascinate us for generations to come. What do you think? Do you believe that dragons existed? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more amazing videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Let's face it, we've always wanted to ride a dragon. Whether you grew up reading fantasy novels or playing video games, these majestic creatures have captivated our imaginations for centuries. But are they just a figment of our collective imagination, or is there more to these mythical beasts than meets the eye? Welcome back, everyone. Here today, I want to talk about dragons, specifically whether they exist. Are dragons real? We'll explore the possibility that these legendary creatures may actually be real, but hidden from our sight. So, let's get started. Dragons appear in the folklore of many different cultures around the world. From the Chinese to the Japanese to the Greeks, each culture has its own unique take on what a dragon is and what powers it possesses. They're often depicted as powerful and dangerous creatures, but they can also be wise and benevolent. Depending on the story, dragons play a variety of roles in mythology, including acting as guardians of treasure, bringers of wisdom, and even creators of the world itself. In some tales, they're fierce and terrifying, while in others, they're gentle and majestic. The diversity of dragon lore across cultures suggests that these creatures have captured the human imagination for thousands of years. And there are many people who believe that this widespread fascination with dragons means that they must exist. So let's talk about some of the most common arguments for the existence of dragons. One argument for the existence of dragons is the sheer number of cultures that have dragon myths. As we said before, dragons appear in the folklore of many different cultures all over the world. Now, obviously, this isn't evidence in and of itself, but it does suggest that there may be something to these stories. After all, it's unlikely that so many cultures would invent the same mythical creature independently. If there's one thing that humans have a lot of, it's imagination. So if dragons were real, you might think that only a few cultures would come into contact with them and then incorporate them into their mythology. But the fact that dragons appear in cultures all over the world suggests that they may be real. It suggests that they may be real and that they've been around for a long time. This is known as the independent verification problem in cryptozoology. Just because an animal hasn't been proven to exist doesn't mean it does not exist. If it did not exist, someone would have made up the stories. There is just too much corroborating evidence from different cultures. Now, another argument for the existence of dragons is the fact that they appear in ancient texts. Many ancient texts make references to dragons, which suggests that these creatures were seen as real by those who lived thousands of years ago. For example, the Bible makes several references to dragons, including in the book of Job, where they're described as enormous serpents with multiple wings. Similarly, ancient Chinese texts contain detailed descriptions of dragons, which were seen as benevolent creatures that brought good fortune to those who lived near them. Again, this could be interpreted as evidence that dragons were real, and that they were seen as real by those who lived thousands of years ago. Now, skeptics argue that these ancient texts are often metaphorical or symbolic, and that any references to dragons are simply literary devices. But the sheer number of ancient texts that contain references to dragons suggests that there may be more to these stories than meets the eye. Another interesting point is that dragons are found in cultures that are geographically isolated from each other. For example, the Aztec culture of Mesoamerica had a rich tradition of dragon lore, despite having no contact with other cultures that had similar beliefs. This suggests that dragons may be real and that they may have been encountered by cultures all over the world, regardless of how far removed they were from each other. Now, another argument for the existence of dragons is the fact that they're found in prehistoric art. Many prehistoric cave paintings depict creatures that look like dragons, which suggests that these creatures were seen as real by our ancestors. For example, the famous Lascaux cave paintings in France contain several images of what appear to be dragons. These paintings are estimated to be around 15,000 years old, which suggests that dragons were seen as real by some of the earliest humans who ever lived. Now, skeptics argue that these prehistoric artworks are often interpretations of actual animals, and that any resemblance to dragons is purely coincidental. However, the fact that dragon-like creatures appear in prehistoric art from different parts of the world at different times suggests that there may be more to these images than meets the eye. In addition to these three main arguments, there are plenty of anecdotal accounts of dragon sightings throughout history. While these stories can't be verified, they do add to the mystery and intrigue surrounding these elusive creatures. There's also evidence that dragons may exist in the form of fossils. Now, hear me out on this one. Many people believe that dragons were real animals that lived millions of years ago. If this is true, then their fossils should exist somewhere. Unfortunately, there are no fossils that have been discovered that can be definitively linked to dragons. However, the discovery of new fossils is always possible, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that dragon fossils will be found in the future. Now, finally, there's the possibility that dragons exist in remote areas of the world that haven't been explored thoroughly. Many people believe that dragons live in places like the Himalayas or in the Amazon rainforest, where they can hide from humans and live undisturbed. This is pure speculation, though, and there's no evidence that dragons live in these areas. Now, while these arguments are interesting, and they do raise some intriguing questions about the nature of reality, it's important to remember that none of them provide definitive proof that dragons exist. Ultimately, the question of whether dragons are real or not is a matter of belief. Some people choose to believe that dragons are real because they find the idea of these magnificent creatures living among us to be comforting or exciting. Others choose not to believe in dragons because they feel that there's no concrete evidence to support their existence. What do you think? Do you believe that dragons are real? Let me know in the comments below. Personally, I think that the evidence is pretty compelling. The fact that dragons appear in the mythology of so many different cultures around the world suggests that there may be something to these stories. Plus, we haven't even considered the possibility that dragons may live in other dimensions or in alternate realities. Maybe we're not looking in the right places. Who knows? The truth is, we simply don't have enough evidence to say for sure whether dragons exist or not. But that hasn't stopped people from believing in them for centuries. And it's unlikely that it will stop anytime soon. So next time you look up at the stars, remember that there may be dragons flying among them, waiting to be discovered. Or maybe they're just figments of our collective imagination. Either way, it's fun to wonder and to dream about the possibility that these majestic creatures really are out there. So, what do you think? Do you believe that dragons are real? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.